Greetings and blessed day to you once again, people of God. Last time on season 3, segment part 9, in the partnering God in business, we explained about the sacrificial representations, which is season 3, part 9, the spirit significance of a sacrifice, and the spiritual monetary material representations. We majored in explaining about not only the spirit significance behind the man that is in business, but the money and the material wealth that is gathered by the man. So our main emphasis was to study the spirit of things behind the material wealth and the possessions and any other business transaction. We learned that the repentance of a man or the deliverance of a man is not enough until also what he has gathered in business is also cleansed by God. So today we continue once more again in season 3, but which is now part 10 in this segment. And today in the partnering God in business, we want to look at what is called the Spirit of God representation. Yesterday we were focusing on the sacrificial representation. Today we want to focus on the Spirit of God representation. And obviously this Spirit of God representation is the representation inside a man. We want to focus on the Spirit of God representation inside a man. So the difference between yesterday's presentation and today's presentation is that yesterday we looked at the spirit inside the material representations of things that are gathered, but today we want to look at the businessman himself, the things that he can influence with the Spirit of God in him, not the spirit that is inside the things that have been gathered. Believe me, some of you are going to find it very hard to find the relevance of this presentation in terms of the business world, but there is nothing that is not influenced by the Spirit in terms of the success of a businessman, in terms of the things that he gathered. The spirits, either that of God or either that of the negative world, they come and take over both the owner of the business and his or her own material acquisitions. So in this presentation, we are going to be looking at the Spirit of God representations, and obviously the Spirit of God inside a man, and the Spirit's significance of a blessed man, and the administration of God's representative. We are also going to see the kind of administration that is brought up by the Spirit of God inside a man who is the blessed man, his influence in whatever he does. So for us people to understand more on this presentation, let's get into scriptures. In Genesis chapter 39 verse 1, and Joseph was brought down to Egypt. We are not going to go back to explain how Joseph was brought down to Egypt. We all know what happened after he had his dream among his other brothers, and they sold him to Egypt because of being jealous, because of his gift, and he is sold to Egypt. And this was the part of God, Joseph being sold to Egypt for the purpose that God wanted him to execute in Egypt. And Joseph is sold to Egypt and brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, brought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which he had brought down hither. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of the master of the Egyptian. the blessing that was in Jacob, the blessing that was in Abraham, the blessing that was in Isaac. We can go back there. I explained that in season 1. The blessing and the curse, I explained that. And Joseph represents that custodian of that blessing that is still in him. So we want to study this blessing, what it can do, what it can influence inside one that already has the influence of God or the Spirit of God. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. Everything that Joseph did prospered in his hand, such that even though he was a foreigner in that Egypt nation, Potiphar, who belonged in that nation as an Egyptian, was able to see this prosperity, the prosperous hand of everything that Joseph did. It was not about the business of Pharaoh. It was not about the business of Potiphar. It was not about what Potiphar owned, but he was able to see the blessing that was inside Joseph, which was more than what Potiphar calculated is just an art of doing things, but he saw the prosperity that was inside Joseph. The blessing that was inside Joseph is the one that was able to manage everything. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he saved him, and he made him overseer over his house. And all that he had put, he put into his hand, because he was prosperous. And it came to pass from the time he had made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. It doesn't matter what kind of a man Potiphar was, but everything that the Egyptian had was blessed by God. For what purpose? Because the one that was now in charge of that business, the one that was now the overseer of that house, the one that was now overlooking all matters that concerned everything, was a man that was blessed. Was not only a man that was blessed, but a man that was right standing with God. And God also blessed everything that Potiphar had. Potiphar was not chosen by God. Potiphar represents someone that is not even a Christian. But everything that he had also was blessed because of Joseph. Being that man inside your business and having a right standing relationship with God makes you a significant factor that is relevant to your own business, as the Spirit of God that dwells inside you is the one that God uses to manage everything or to maintain everything that is under your hand. And it came to pass from that time he made him overseer in the house and all that he had, and the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake, and the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in their house and in the field. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew not aught he had, save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favored. Everything save the bread that he ate was left under Joseph's hand, because Potiphar had realized the blessing that was inside Joseph and the Spirit of God that was inside Joseph, the same Spirit that was able to be the administrator of everything that Potiphar had. And it came to pass after these things that the master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, Lie with me. This is a test or a temptation that is coming to Joseph, not only to Joseph, but to Potiphar. Why? Because the devil understood that the reason why everything is prosperous in this house is not because of the business. It's not because of Potiphar's finances. No. It's about a man that is with God. So the only way that we can cause a mismanagement of everything that is happening in that house that I'm signifying as a business is to defile the man in whom the Spirit of God is. If you defile the man in whom the Spirit of God is, and also the business will be mismanaged. It's not about accounts. It's not about the mismanagement of funds in everything that Joseph had been given to manage there in that house. It was about the Spirit of God that was administrating each and every thing inside that house. And the Lord was with Joseph. And after that temptation, after that test, which Joseph conquered, but because he was framed by Potiphar's wife, Joseph was then put into prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand and all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. And again, when Joseph was in prison, there isn't a place that doesn't need any kind of management. But because the man that has been put behind bars, the man that has been put in prison, had the Spirit of the Lord in him, everything that he did, even while he's behind bars inside prison, it was blessed, and the scripture says he was the doer of it. Meaning that everything that went accordingly in that environment of the prison, Joseph was the doer of it. Such that the keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him. This is the same again that happened with Potiphar, when Joseph was under Potiphar. Potiphar did not look to anything that was under Joseph, because he knew that the one that was in charge of all those things had the Spirit of God in him. And it came to pass, whilst Joseph was in prison, that he interpreted dreams of two different men, the butler and the baker. And he interpreted the fate of the baker who was going to be hanged, and he interpreted the dream of the butler who was going to be restored to save Pharaoh again. And when the butler went to save Pharaoh, as it was predetermined and revealed and interpreted by Joseph, the butler related to Pharaoh about a man who had interpreted his dream. And at that point of time, Pharaoh had a dream that troubled him. And the only man that could interpret that dream was Joseph again. And that dream was not just an ordinary dream which was personal. That dream concerned the economic affairs of Egypt. And this was an opportunity for Joseph to stand again before Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and he shaved himself and changed his raiment and came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard people say, you can understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, it is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. You see, Joseph understands that it is not him that does anything, but it is the God that is in him. the spirit of the gods that is in him, that do everything, that causes prosperity in whatever he touches. Having the ability to understand that every administration that is happening inside business at a certain particular time, when one is connected and partnered to God, it is happening because of the Spirit of God inside you, not because of your expertise. That is where most men begin to falter, when they start to think that they are the ones that are in charge of their business, while at least they are partnered to God in business. But Joseph understood that it was the Spirit of God which was the representation of everything that was happening. And Pharaoh then said unto Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river, and behold, there came out of the river 7 kings, fat-fleshed and well-favored, and they fed in the middle. And behold, 7 other kings came up after them, poor and ill-favored and lean-fleshed, such as I have never seen in the land of Egypt for badness. And behold, 7 other kings came up after them, poor, ill-favored, and lean-fleshed, such that I have never seen in the land of Egypt. And the lean and the ill-favored king did eat up the 7 fat kine. The lean, which are the thin, and which appeared ill, are the ones that ate up the fat kine. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them up, but they were still ill-favored as the beginning. This was the state of Egypt that was being explained in the dream. A state whereby even if one that has got everything that it desires has consumed whatever is given to him, he still remains ill, he still remains thin. Having money that comes into your treasury box, having money that comes into your accounts, gathering everything that you ever want, but you still remain ill, you still remain thin, eating all the good food that you desire, but still, because there isn't any representation of the Spirit of God in whatever you do, even after you have consumed all that you desire, you still remain thin. The health of the nation of Egypt was not seen in that vision, even after every material representation that had been gathered. And that dream is signifying exactly that. And what is being needed there is a man that has the Spirit of God in him, a man that is going to be a representation of God in the nation of Egypt, to administer, using the Spirit of God, all the affairs of Egypt, to administer with the Spirit of God all the affairs of a business, all the affairs of any economic represented factors inside Egypt. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, The dream of Pharaoh is one, because Pharaoh also had another dream that was similar to that one, but it had different aspects of interpretations. And the 17 and the ill-favored that came up after the 7 years are the 7 empty blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. Joseph interpreted that as 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh, what God is about to do. He sheweth unto Pharaoh, Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout the land of Egypt, and there shall also arise 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. This is not accounts. This is not the Minister of Finance doing this. This is a man with the Spirit of God. This is a business concept being explained in the Spirit. I had someone that asked me concerning yesterday's part 9, where the relevance of business was in that presentation. This is the relevance of business, people. explaining the spirituality behind the representation of not only the material things, but the spirit of God inside a person. Those are the factors that run a business. Those are the factors that maintain properties or finances in any business. The well-being of a person, his right standing relationship with God. And for that dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice, it is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now there, let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. You see that Joseph also set himself to be on that position way before he was appointed. He appointed himself. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the fifth part of the land of Egypt in 7 plenteous years, and let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. And that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such as one as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, For as much as God has shown you all this, there is none so discreet and wise as you. Thou shalt be over my house, and according to thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than you. Only in the throne will I be greater than you. There is nothing that is managed on the throne. The one that is now going to be administrating with the Spirit of God everything is Joseph. Because everything that was going to happen in the absence of Joseph was not going to be anything that was going to be prosperous, whilst he was still sitting on that throne. So that throne is just a representation of rulership. But when it comes to leadership, of administration, the Spirit of God is the one that was now in charge. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand, and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. A man that is coming out of prison, instantly a gold chain around his neck, and is now administrating the whole of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And Joseph went out of the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout the land of Egypt. So, people of God, I want you to understand that there is a Spirit of God representation that is required inside the man that is doing business or managing anything that is material, that concerns the business representation. That spirit significance has to be a man that is blessed by God to represent everything in God's business. That will be your business. So until next time, have a blessed day.